Hello and welcome to this session on ethical empowerment, how to operationalise ethics and accountability as well. My name is David Young, I'm the Vice CEO of Innovation Exchange, and in today's session we're going to look how we're going to discuss the topics of ethics in the development of AI applications and how you can build this into your operations in a proactive developmental approach. So we all know we're at a point whereby the pace of technological AI advancement has a velocity which is outstripping the pace with which we are able to ensure that we have a standard set of guidelines, frameworks, rules and regulations in place so we can actively show we are adhering to stuff in a proactive manner. We've seen many examples of AI advancement where we have to retrospectively evaluate if that advancement is truly ethical. So we all know we've environmentally created a world which is unsustainable, and we've failed to accurately assess the impact of the way we live, the way we do business, what we produce and what we consume, and how that was impacting the sustainability of the planet. The same will be true in a world without ethical AI advancement. If we continue to allow AI developments without citizen involvement and rules and regulations, it will mess you up. It will mess us all up, and it will mess the world up. This is why ethics needs to be a balance. An advanced intelligence system should be designed with a balanced, people-centric and environment-friendly purpose to achieve beneficial and sustainable results. Because technology today is designed for several purposes, experimental, research, augmenting human capabilities, and in some cases replacing humans, we need to consider the risk that comes with innovation and the impact it has. Always asking the question, will it have a detrimental impact on humans? To operationalise AI ethics, we need a unanimous global awareness of the impact of a lack of ethics and an understanding of how AI and technology should be innovated. Once we understand all of this, we need principles and a framework to make it happen, and this is how we'll achieve empowerment. It's just like driving a car. If we drive cars without driving licenses, speed limits, warning signs and no low petrol warnings, we're not going to get very far and accidents will happen. So, I'm here today to introduce our new initiative, which is Public Intelligence. This initiative introduces the basic concept of intelligence and the history of advancement in intelligent innovations. This initiative highlights the issues related to the lack of accountable innovation and aims to build public awareness and involvement in deciding the shape of things to come from AI advancement. Public intelligence is aligned to global frameworks including the European Union guidelines and the United Nations SDGs. It's all based on 5 very core principles of PI. Regulation is going to be complicated. If you look at the latest EU guidelines for a start, we have to approach this in a top-down approach. So we can actually get in place our 5 principles. All of the micro-guidelines, best practices and objectives will align to one of those 5 principles. The first one is our right to intelligence. This looks at how humans, as humans, we've built through knowledge and experience a level of intelligence which we as humans own. At this point, you can then ask in a very simple terms, do corporations or tech billionaires actually have the right to take that from us and incorporate that into technological advancements? Do we own it in the first place? Our second principle is that of purpose. What is the overall purpose of the AI application? We could break this down by what problem is it trying to achieve, what augmentation level is in place, trying to improve cognitive performance in business operations, and also what's the overall value that will be developed using an application in terms of benefits it will reap. Our third principle is disruption. This is the impact assessment to systems and societies using application now and both in the future. How will it impact and replace the skill sets of humans and devalue those skill sets? How will it impact the natural resources that are needed to maintain a global ecological balance? Likewise, we've got to look at the overall ecosystems and how that will be disrupted. Risk is all about formulating a risk assessment. The risk assessment is needed for proactive identification and mitigation of risk scenarios rather than addressing them in a reactive stance. We should look to the risks impacting our human rights, the respect for our individual and collective intelligence, and the accurate identification of the repercussions of not mitigating risks adequately and proactively. Our last principle is that of accountability. Accountable redesign becomes the foundation for any new innovation, starting from the ground up, ensuring that design starts on the right track with universally accepted and democratically generated design requirements. This in turn will help any innovator build accountable innovations and offers a full 360-degree coverage on accountability, sustainability, and people-centric design. Next, we need to look at how we can apply this and how we can apply those 5 principles into operations, ensuring that the correct standards are adhered to. So let's see how we can apply them. We've got to look and analyse and look at the challenges that are out there that we need to get around. We need to scrutinise and challenge the irresponsible use of technology, which is undermining our societies and democracies. As we move into a new digital industrial age, we have an opportunity to change course and usher in a more transparent, democratic era of technology. All organisations need to be more transparent in how they use AI, for what purpose, and the methods used to ensure citizens have trust and reliance. Overall, global technology governance will not be achieved by political actors alone. It also requires grassroots movement in the tech community. We need to have aligned accountability to acknowledge the repercussions and unintentional consequences that could contribute towards the global crisis and risk we're now facing. We know that millions of people's livelihoods are at risk, and this is only going to get worse over the next decade or so. We know our planet is facing serious climatic changes due to extreme resource consumption and unsustainable practices. Most importantly, our future generations will be under tremendous stress due to uncertainties and a lagging educational system. We need to think about cyber insecurity and how personal and financial information around our faces, our voice and our behaviours is all being stored and stolen. And we need to look at digital inequality, leading to socio-eco divide by gaining unfair advantages with powerful new technologies. Next, we need to apply. In order to do that, we need to justify the choice of introducing an AI-powered service. Before considering how to mitigate the risks associated with AI-powered services, organisations willing to deploy them should clearly lay out their assigned objectives and how they are supposed to benefit from the various stakeholders such as end users, consumers, citizens and societies at large. We need to adopt a multi-stakeholder approach. Project teams should identify the stakeholders both internally and externally that should be anchored to each particular project and provide them with relevant information about usage scenarios envisaged and the specification of AI systems under consideration. Thirdly, let's consider the relevant regulations and build on existing best practices. When considering the risks and benefits associated with specific AI-powered solutions, include relevant human and civil rights in impact assessments. Next, we need to apply risk benefits assessment frameworks across the life cycle of AI-powered services. An important distinction between AI software and traditional software development is the learning aspect. That's the underlying model which evolves with data and use. Therefore, any sensible risk assessment framework has to integrate both the build time, design elements, and the runtime, monitor and manage elements. Also, it should be amenable for assessment from a multi-stakeholder perspective, both at build time and runtime. Next, we need to adopt a user-centric and use case-based approach. To ensure that risk benefits assessment frameworks are effectively actionable, they should be designed from the perspective of the project teams around specific use cases. We then need to clearly lay out a risk prioritisation scheme. Diverse groups of stakeholders have different risk benefit perceptions and the levels of tolerance. Therefore, it's essential to implement processes explaining how risks and benefits are prioritised and competing interests resolved. Next, we need to define performance metrics. The project teams in consultation with key stakeholders should define clear metrics for assessing the AI-powered system's fitness for its intended purpose. These metrics should cover the system's narrowly defined accuracy as well as other aspects of the system more broadly defined fitness for purpose, including factors such as regulatory compliance, user experience and adoption rates. Number 8, define our operational roles. Project teams should clearly define the roles for human agents in the deployment and operation of any AI-powered system. The definition should include clear specification of the responsibilities each agent is required for the effective operation of the system, the competencies required for filling the role and the risks associated with a failure to fill the roles as intended. Next, we need to specify data requirements and flows. Project teams should specify the volumes and nature of data required for the effective training, testing and operation of any AI-powered system. Project teams should map data flows expected with the operations of the system, including data acquisition, processing, storage and final disposition, and then identify the provisions to maintain data security and integrity at each stage in the data life cycle. Next, support a culture of experimentation. Organisations should advocate for a right to experiment around AI-powered services for deployment to encourage calculated risks. In practice, this requires setting up feasibility and validation studies, encouraging cross-collaboration across departments and fields of expertise, the sharing of knowledge and feedback via a dedicated platform. Specific lines of accountability. Project teams should map their lines of responsibility for outcomes, both immediate and final, generated by any AI-powered system. Such a map should enable a third party to assess responsibility for any unexpected outcome of that system. Following on from this, we need to create educational resources. We need to build a repository of various risk-benefits assessments frameworks, their performance and revised versions to develop strong organisational capability in the development of AI-powered services, and this is key. So we hope these guidelines will help organisations interested in putting AI into practice to ask the right questions, follow the best practices, identify and follow the right stakeholders in the process. We don't claim to give the final word on this vital conversation, but to empower organisations in their journey to deploy AI responsibly. So, all in all, this leads us to the value proposition that public intelligence is going to deliver. We look at things like enabling collaboration, accessibility, transparency, all with an overall aim of giving you a framework by which you can apply public intelligence. So what do we need to do? We need to make it happen. Here we can apply our car analogy again. We need to step back in time and remind ourselves how hard it was when we first stepped on a bike or we first sat in the driving seat on our first driving lesson. It seemed hard, complicated, unknown, and over a period of time we gained that confidence and that knowledge and that momentum, and that's what we need to apply when we apply public intelligence. We just need to get started, gain momentum so it becomes embedded in our mindset, culture and our best practice. So if you're looking for more information on how public intelligence can help you, we've set up a public intelligence entity which focuses on information sharing, an open framework platform that can be used by citizens and corporations in the application of ethical AI into operational development. Visit publicintelligence.ai for more information on that. For organisations that are innovators of AI and need consultancy and ethics advisory, we also set up our new AI Vantage consultancy, and you can contact us for support in developing an ethical AI organisation. More information on that can be found at aivantage.ai. So that rounds us off for today. Thanks very much for joining in, and we look forward to meeting you soon on Innovation Exchange.